And I do want to just go over a few things, and then today, okay. Can you see my screen open?
Yes.
All right. So today we find ourselves right here in Poetic Books. I think you're gonna really love this one, Opal, because is this is going to talk about the poetic books that we use a lot in the Bible. And
Yes.
then really, I'm just going to wrap it up right here real quick. And let's talk about the last assignment that you have is the life application paper. And I got to change that date. Is due 12/4 2020, not 19. All right, so anyway, let's talk about your last thing. This is your final, and it's going to take you some time. So for students who are watching, I want you to make sure that you take a look at the last module in D2L, and it should say final paper or something like that, life application paper. And so you're going to select one of these Old Testament scriptures below, and 2 Samuel, Psalm 23, in the book of Isaiah. We didn't get a chance to get the prophecy books, but Isaiah 41 and 10 or Isaiah 40 and 31. Ecclesiastes, we're going to talk about that today. That's a wisdom book, poetic literature. Genesis 22, Joshua, remember that's our historical book. Genesis 3, excuse me, y'all. Genesis chapter 4, or Daniel chapter 3. Daniel is a prophetic book. He's one of our major prophets. And I'm sorry, it just seemed like this moved so fast. We weren't able to get through everything in the Old Testament, but I hope you guys keep moving and keep learning about the Old Testament. And so you're welcome to also find any other Old Testament texts if you don't like these in this list, but you got a lot of good ones in this list. All right, so in this paper is you want to read that scripture from your Bible online, or if you have a paper Bible, and you're going to answer these questions in your paper. It should be at least 3 double-spaced pages or more. You're going to talk about the author. Who is the author of the text, and why do you think that person wrote it? So I want you to use your textbook to assist you in this assignment. Tell me about the author. When we talk about authorship, say, the book says that so and so wrote it, but we don't really know if so and so wrote it. It could be so and so, so and so, and so and so. Remember how we talked about authorship can be tricky, but you can kind of pinpoint it to maybe a group of people or one person. The second thing you want to include in your paper is from the scripture that you study, what is the lesson? What is the biblical lesson? Maybe it's about faith, or maybe it's about love, maybe it's about trusting, maybe it's about learning lessons or something. What do you think God or the Creator God is saying to the people at that particular time? Now, every story, everything that you read in the Bible is written for a specific time period, excuse me, and when that person wrote it, when they penned it, right? But I want you to also think about the context of the text, and when you are doing your research, you're going to look I can't talk. You're going to look in terms of the time that it was written. Remember, we keep talking about the Israelites, and maybe this book was written when they were in bondage, or maybe this book was written after they came out. All right. And then in step 3, what lesson can you apply from that scripture to everyday life? So in this particular class, we want to take the words and the verses and the literature that we see from Old Testament just as much as any other book, right? And say, what can we learn from this story now? And so I want you to apply it to like everyday situations. Maybe it is something in that scripture that reminds us of what's going on with our government or schools, or maybe it talks about personal debts or struggles, following directions, Okay, so I want you to expound on these three areas. You shouldn't have, let's say, for example, in point 3, what lesson do I learn? Maybe you say not to trust other people. Okay, but that shouldn't be it. You're expounding more. You should be able to explain more about what that scripture might be saying to people in everyday life today. Okay, so let me just stop talking real quick. Opal, is this okay for you? Any questions?
No, ma'am.
All right. All right. Well, if anybody has any questions, you guys can email me, but remember, let me share my screen again. That final paper is going to be due December 4th. And you're going to put it in the Dropbox December 4th. All right. Well, Opal, can you see the screen? It says Poetic Books of the Bible.
Yes.
Awesome. And we're going to move on right here. Excuse me. I got something in my throat. All right. So we're going to talk about the poetic books, and there are a few categories that I want you guys to see. The poetic books or poetical books are Job, Psalm, the book of Proverbs, Ecclesiastes, and Song of Solomon. And then sometimes you may see it in some Bibles, it says Song of Songs. Okay, so once again, that's Job, Psalms, Proverbs, Ecclesiastes, and Song of Solomon. And in some, like I said, in some areas, it's Song of Songs. Let me get my Bible real quick. All right. Okay, so it always helps if you have, if you have your Bible with you, and if you're able to just thumb through it for those people who are watching later. So if we start with last week. Last week we talked about last week we talked about Ruth, and it's a shame we can't get through all of the books, right? But I love also the book of Esther. Esther is a historical book, but it is Esther is the last book, and then you'll come into Job. So what I want you to also see in the Old Testament is that these books have been, each book has been carefully placed. So they didn't just throw all the books somewhere. All of the books were carefully placed. So books that are similar will all go in the same category. So for example, the poetical books and wisdom books, you'll see that they're all grouped together. And then after the book of, I think it's Ecclesiastes, then you start to get into the prophetic books. And then all of the prophetic books are grouped together. All of the history books are grouped together. Okay, so it's really cool how all of the Old Testament, but really all of the books. Oh, 1 second. Okay, it's really cool how these ancient people came together and said, wait a minute, we can't just throw this book together any kind of way. This Bible's got to make sense to people both now and later on. And so they grouped the books together in categories. All right, so anyway, so Job, Psalms, Proverbs, Ecclesiastes, Song of Solomon, excuse me, those books don't really have any history to it. There are some historical accounts, but they don't really like tell stories like the other books did. But what these books do is they bring to light some of the experiences of the heart and what people were going through. Maybe it was about pain or trusting God. Job talks a lot about, the book of Job talks a lot about pain and what to do. So let's talk a little bit more. Let's talk a little bit more now. Your class is called Old Testament and Hebrew, right? And so in this particular class, I spelled something wrong. In this particular book, we are going to examine, in this class, we're going to examine Hebrew literature as well. And so the literature is really cool because there are a lot of different ways that they expressed poetry. And if you see right there on the screen, there are 3 types of poetry that you'll see in the Old Testament. There's lyric poetry, and lyric poetry was music that was set to, were words that were set to music. And that is basically all of the book of Psalms. And we'll get there in just a second. So the book of Psalms was really meant to be songs. There's didactic poetry, and this type of poetry teaches like life lessons. You'll find that in the book of Proverbs and the book of Ecclesiastes. And I spelled that wrong. I'm gonna have to come back and fix that because that's gonna make me mad.
Ecclesiastes.
I said this is wrong.
EC.
I have it right. That's
Thank
one of
you
those.
right now.
Okay.
Ecclesiastes. Correct.
E-A. All right.
Right now.
I'm telling you, that's one that we
That's
don't.
all right. I have to do it all the time. I do. Y'all see my spelling in my paper. I do spell check the best I can.
I'm telling you, me too. When I see that little squiggly line, I say, uh-oh, that's not right. Thank you, Opal.
Oh, you're welcome.
And dramatic poetry is dialogue. You're going to see that dialogue in the book of Job as well as the Song of Solomon. So let's keep talking. So remember that. There's lyric poetry, there's didactic poetry, and dramatic poetry. All right, so let's go to the first book. Got all kinds of stuff. All right, let's go to the first book that we're going to examine. And this is the book of Proverbs. So Opal, you're rolling with me, and go after Psalms, and then we're going to go to Proverbs chapter 1. Proverbs chapter 1.
Okay.
And just to give you, while you're looking for it, just to give you a little background on the book of Proverbs. Proverbs was a book that was supposed to be like a manual. It was supposed to be like a lesson book for young men who were in school, like a training kind of school. And of course, during that time, it was more focused on males because the culture. Little girls or young ladies didn't go to school, like the boys did. Now, everybody goes to school. But I want you to also understand that when you read the literature or when you see the words of Proverbs and you see a lot of male pronouns or referring to men, that's the reason why. So this book was initially written to be a guide for young men in school. Okay. All right. So let's go back. You there?
Yes, I'm here. Sister Helen, I'll call you back. I'm in class.
Oh, all right.
I have the lady at the church.
All right. So, you good? In Proverbs chapter 1, this, you got it, Opal?
Uh-huh.
Okay. Can you read 1 through 7?
Okay. And I'm reading from the NIV as you instructed. The Proverbs of Solomon, son of David, king of Israel, for gaining wisdom and instruction, for understanding words of insight, for receiving instructions in prudent behavior, doing what is right and just and fair, for giving prudence to those who are simple, knowledge and discretion to the young. Let the wise listen and add to their learning, and let the discerning get guidance. For understanding proverbs and parables, the sayings and riddles of the wise. In verse 7, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge, but fools despise wisdom and instruction.
All right, thank you, Opal. So this opening tells us a lot. So one of the authors, if you look at your book of your Bible, should I say, one of the authors is thought to be Solomon, and Solomon was a king.
Mhm.
Yeah, and
Yes,
so
ma'am.
yeah, go ahead, Opal, go ahead.
Oh, no, I just said yes, ma'am.
Yes,
Mhm.
yes. And one of the themes that we see just opening up here in verses 1 through 7 is, if you look right here in verse 4, to the young man, knowledge and discretion. A wise man will hear and increase learning. A man of understanding will attain wise counsel. So remember what I said in the beginning, that this book was designed to be like a training manual for young men in school. So that's the reason why we see a lot of the Proverbs will refer to a male. And of course, it's not just for men, but I want you to also
Yeah.
understand the initial intent of the writing was for young men. All right, so I also want you to see something else, because of course we can't get through everything. In the book of Proverbs, you will also see a contrast between foolish living and wise living. I think you just read it, Opal, where you said, but fools despise wisdom and instruction.
And instruction. Mhm.
Uh-huh.
Verse 7. Mhm.
Verse 7.
And
And
that is
so
so true. That is so true.
right, it sure is.
Mhm.
And as you continue to read the literature of Proverbs, of the book of Proverbs, the writer keeps using this word foolish, foolish, wise,
Mhm.
wise. I mean, they use it over and over and over again. They keep drilling knowledge. They keep drilling that word about knowledge. And so anyway, I want you to see one thing before we move off of this book. If you go to Proverbs 1 and verse 20, remember we talked about males, the male pronoun is always used, or like my son or young man, you see that a lot. But in verse 20, you see another you see another, what do I want to say, pronoun come in there. Opal, can you read verse 20 and 21?
Okay. Out in the open, wisdom calls aloud. She raises her voice in the public square. On
Right.
top of the wall, she cries out. At the city gate, she makes her speech.
Awesome. So what I want you to see in the literature here, in the writing, in the words, is that in this male-dominated book, right? Isn't that interesting? Wisdom is referred to as a female, or as a woman, as a she. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, I always thought of it as Solomon. A lot of things he was saying, especially in Proverbs 31, he was talking about his mother.
Right.
Those,
Proverbs 31.
is that female? Now that's my version of it. Some of it.
Sure.
He's talking about his mother. He's making reference maybe to
To
her.
his mom.
Uh-huh.
Sure could be. Sure could be. And when you, if we get a chance, if you go to, let's see if I can find it in my book, or in my Bible, should I say. If we were to look at the Old Testament Hebrew word of wisdom, it is and see, their words are different from ours,
Right.
where our words are just like a word, right? And then their words could have a feminine and a masculine to it as well. Okay. Thought I heard something. All right. So I know we got a lot to get through. Let's go ahead to the book of Job.
Okay.
Job. And actually, let me backtrack. We're gonna backtrack a little bit to Job.
Okay.
So you're gonna come back. You're going to go backwards. So Esther and then Job.
Okay. Okay.
Now, the book of Job is really interesting. And if you get a chance, let me make sure I turn my phone down. If you get a chance, we're going to look at the divisions of Job. But one of the things that a lot of people find interesting with this particular book is that, let me make this change, is that Job was considered a good guy. He was considered to be a righteous person, but then all of a sudden he was attacked for, to us as humans, we would say like for no reason. And the book of Job deals with suffering. And sometimes for us as humans, we would say, well, that's just so unjust. Why would this happen? He lost his kids. He lost his house. He just lost everything. But at the end of this book, Job goes through, well, throughout the book of Job, okay, Job goes through these series of discussions or debates with his friends. And his friends are questioning, well, why did this happen to you? You must have did something wrong. Well, tell me what you did. And that's what we do. That's really what we do as humans, right? Something happens in my life and I'm like, why did this happen? I must have did this, that, and the other. But sometimes we have to just sit back and say, okay, well, maybe it wasn't that person. Maybe this was just something that the Creator wanted for a greater reason that we as humans don't really know right now. And so at the end of the book, the reader discovers that Job's suffering isn't really anything that he did to himself or that he did to his family, but it was simply God's sovereignty, or that
That's
means, and sovereignty simply means that God is in control, can do whatever.
you want to.
There you go.
Right.
There you go.
God allowed Satan to tamper with Job because I believe because Job was a righteous man. That's what the Bible said. He didn't do anything wrong. The Lord knew that Job loved him so much, no matter what, he would not denounce God. So he chose him knowing that.
Right. He chose him knowing that. You are correct.
We are chosen. We're chosen to go through some things because we're stronger than others. And we're going to have trials and tribulations. And the way I see it, we're going to have them until we die. It's just one trial makes us stronger for the next and keep on going. So we just have to trust God, just like Job. Right. He trusted him. And in the end, he actually won. He had victory because the Lord gave him everything back. What? Twice as much?
Twice as much.
So,
you know.
I love that story. Ma'am.
So, I think it might have been more than twice. I'm glad you said that. I got to look back at that again.
Okay. So 2 or 3 times, but anyway, he gave back to him everything he lost.
Sure did.
Mm-hmm.
Sure did. So in the book of Job, if you get a chance, Opal, and those people who are watching, I want you to go to your Bible, and there's something interesting I want you to see. Now, in my Bible, in the beginning of the one that I have, it gives me like a little overview of my book.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that I want you to see about the book of Job is we're not real sure who really wrote this book. We're not really sure exactly when it was written. We're not really sure about that. However, in the beginning of the book, now in my Bible, the beginning of chapter 1, it tells what it is. It says it is a prologue. A prologue. And then the second part of the book is this man, Job, having his dialogues with his friends. The third part is one of his other friends is named Elihu, and Elihu has a monologue. I want you to remember those words. The next part of, and then actually, let me go up here. And you'll see some of this on the screen. Excuse me. And then the next part, the Lord speaks in chapters 38 to 41. Job makes a confession in chapter 42. And then watch this word. There is an epilogue at the end. There is an epilogue at the end of the book. And one of the things that I want you to remember, the book of Job, as we start to study it, and I thought it was really interesting as I studied this book, the book of Job is actually a play, and or some type of what would we say, something that could be performed. Mm-hmm. And if you see right up here, go ahead, Opal, you had a question.
Oh no, I was just agreeing to what you're saying about the play. Okay, I'm trying to see your screen and listen to you at the same time.
Oh, okay. Can you see the screen? Okay.
Yeah, I can see it. I just have to kind of squeeze it a little bit. I don't see very well. It's okay. I need new glasses.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
Okay, now that's better. Thank you. That's much better.
Sorry,
thank you.
I apologize.
Thank you.
And so I thought this was so interesting as I started to study this, that the way that it was written, and I had always read the book of Job, but it was divided into parts, a prologue. And if you've ever been to a play, like this would be like the opening act. And then like if somebody has a monologue in the play, they come and they stand, but they talk all by themselves. And then an epilogue wraps it up. And so to watch those words, you always got to watch the words that you see in your biblical book, because that will tell you a lot of the reason or how this book came together. So the book of Job, we learn a lot from it, but Job may or may not have been a real person. We don't really know. But how the book came together, you see the book of Job is written as a play.
Okay.
That was really cool. I was like, wow.
Well, I didn't know that either. I thought Job was a real man. I don't know it was a play.
Now, it's not to say he wasn't real. He could have been. We don't really know.
Oh.
He could have been. And maybe somebody took this story and put it into a play. But I'm just saying the way that it's written is in play form.
Yes, I got you. Yeah. Well, at the end of it, in answer to your question that you're going to look up, chapter 42, your ending when you wrap it up, verse 10, after Job had prayed for his friends, the Lord restored him and his fortunes and gave him twice as much as he had before.
That's it, twice. That's it.
Twice.
Okay.
So I was correct, twice.
That's right, twice. I was thinking, I don't know why I had the number 7 in. I said, was it 7 times? But he got it back double.
Right, that's right. I want to make sure that I just read it when you wrapped it up. So I said, I knew it said at the end.
I'm glad you pulled that out.
Yes, ma'am.
So while I'm setting this up, hold on, Opal. Let me set up our video for Song of Songs. But that's really interesting. It's really cool to look at these books and figure out how this original person was trying to get it together. Hey,
yes. Wow.
All right, so we're going to, let's go back to the next book is called Song of Solomon, or sometimes you will see it in your Bible as Song of Songs. So I'm gonna skip down and go past. This one's gonna really get you. And Song of Solomon, and then sometimes you might see it as Song of Songs, but it's all the same, okay?
Okay.
And that's gonna come after Ecclesiastes, okay? And I'm going to- and if you want to pull it up so you can see it, or if you have it on your computer, you could just pull it up. All right, so Song of Solomon is really interesting because this is, let me stop this and go back real quick. This is the only book in the Bible. Well, I don't say the only book, but this book is the only book that focuses on, it is so poetic. It is, it celebrates marriage and love. We're going to take a look at some of the actual scriptures in just a second. But let me go back to, can y'all see my video?
Yes.
Okay.
Read
Let me
scripture.
see if, super, all right.
The Song of Songs. It's a well
Can you hear it?
Yes, ma'am.
known but not so well understood book of the Bible. It's 8 chapters of love poetry. And while there is an introduction and a conclusion, the book doesn't have any kind of rigid, because it's a collection of poems. They're not meant to be dissected or taken apart. They're meant to be read as a flowing whole and simply enjoyed. The first line of the book tells us that it's the Song of Songs, which is a Hebrew idiom like the Holy of Holies or the King of Kings. It's a Hebrew way of saying the greatest thing. So this is the greatest song of all songs. Then we're told in the first line that this Song of Songs is of Solomon, which could mean that he's the author. His name does begin the book after all. But as you read the poems, you discover that the main voice is that of a woman called the Beloved. And while there is also a male voice, it does not seem to be Solomon's. Solomon is mentioned a couple times in the poems, but he's never a speaker. And you do have to admit, Solomon is a very odd candidate as the author of this book, given the fact that he had 700 wives.
Whoa.
For the lovers in the Song of Songs, they are the only ones in the world for each other. So the of Solomon likely means in the wisdom tradition of Solomon. He was known for his wisdom, his poetry, his love of learning about every part of life. And Solomon became the father of wisdom literature in Israel. And so his legacy is here carried on through a collection of love poems that explores the human experience of love and sexual desire. The opening poem introduces us to the basic theme of this book. We hear the voice of the young woman who delights in her man, a shepherd. Now, she's not married to him yet, but it becomes clear that they're engaged and they cannot wait to be together. From the introduction, the poems flow back and forth from the woman's voice to the man, shifting from scene to scene without any kind of clear linear sequence or storyline. The poems move in these symphonic cycles, and key images and ideas get repeated and developed. So one of the basic themes uniting the poems is the intense desire that this couple has for each other, expressed through their constant seeking and finding. After the opening poem, they're separated but on the hunt for one another. So the
Okay, I'm going to pause a little bit and we're going to, give me a second and I'm going to come right back to you. I want to share something. Now, remember what I just pulled up. That was a literature book, Song of Songs or Song of Solomon. It all means the same thing. And once again, let me see if you guys were listening. What's one of the themes that he said was really interesting about this book? It's about what?
Love, romance.
Exactly. Love, romance, two people wanting to be with each can't talk, wanting to be with each other. Can you believe it? This is in the Bible? Yeah. So let me come back to you and I want to show you just a couple of, sorry. I just want to show you just a couple of scriptures. And we're in Song of Solomon, all the same. So I want you to see a few things. This is poetic literature. And this is the only book of the Bible found in the Old Testament, as we're talking about, that deals strictly about a relationship between male and female here, and love. It does talk about marriage. It does talk about romance. It does talk about sex. Oh my goodness, what? It's in the Bible. Yeah. So I want you also to understand that the Bible is holistic and talks about so many different topics. Okay, so anyway, um, whoa, look at this. So remember, the man said in our video that it's like a dialogue back and forth between a lady and her soon-to-be husband. Let, uh-oh, got something on the screen. Look at this. Let him kiss me with the kisses of his mouth, for your love is more delightful than wine. Pleasing is the fragrance of your perfumes. Your name is like perfume poured out. No wonder the young women love you. Take me away with you. Let us hurry. Let the king bring me to his chambers. What does that tell you right there? What are you thinking?
To me, just like the lady and the man, or husband to be, had love for one another. We have the same love for God, that we
Mhm.
want to be pleasing in His sight, even as perfume, as a fragrance. We want to be beautiful and all of that, from the heart, because we want Him to love us just as much as we love Him. We know He loves us, so He wants us to love Him.
Sure, sure, very good. And so in Song of Songs, it's really interesting. Now, focus here also, it's really interesting that in this book, um, their focus is a romantic love. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like, yeah, I think sometimes we think that how in the world could that ever be in the Bible? But God is one thing I want you to see is in the literature is that the creator it was concerned about all of the people's lives, about their children, about their money, about their food. Okay, anyway, I want you to see this. This is so cool. Verse 5. Y'all got to catch this. Dark am I, yet lovely. Daughters of Jerusalem, dark like the tents of Kedar. Oh, hope I said that right. Like the tent curtains of Solomon. What do you catch there? Dark am I, yet lovely.
Dark skinned woman.
Dark skinned woman. Oh my goodness. Could this be our ancestors? Surely.
Mm-hmm.
So remember, y'all, look at verse 6. Do not stare at me because I'm darkened by the sun. So that tells us about maybe skin tone, ethnicity, culture, and all that. So there's so much in this book. If you just get a chance, read it like poetry. And here's the man's part in there. Um, it is beautiful. Uh,
Mm.
it's
Yeah.
beautiful. Okay. So anyway, we're going to let me pause and I'm gonna come back to our lesson. Hold on. Watching our time. All right, and so our next book that we're going to talk about, let me make sure I get it back up on the screen, is the book of Psalms. This is, if you guys caught it in the beginning, the book of Psalms is one of the most popular books of the Bible. Now, did somebody catch in the beginning what type of poetry do we use in Psalms?
Music.
Good, lyrical, very good. Because the Psalms the Psalms, excuse me, Psalms, Psalm, were songs, Songs. Okay. And so they were actual Psalms. And so if you have your Bible with you, I just want you to go to that book. It should say the book of Psalms with S.
Okay.
And one of the most popular Psalms that we have is Psalm 23. That's one of the real popular ones that many people may know, whether they're Christian or not Christian, but it is a popular and widely used one. It's now this particular book is divided into 150 songs. Okay, so you got the book of songs, right? And so just think about 150 different songs in there. And I want you to, if you're there in the book of Psalms already, okay, I want you to just pick one and just kind of peruse over it and look and see what the theme is. A lot of the themes in the Psalms are just about people going through life stuff. Maybe they're happy in the Psalm, maybe they're ticked off, maybe they are hopeless, beyond hopeless, maybe they're tired of suffering. Maybe they say, hold up, I'm gonna wait on the Lord, okay? Did anybody get a chance to peruse over a particular song? Okay, but I'm gonna just go to Psalm 11 and Psalm 11. And many times, like right in the beginning of the psalm, you can kind of get the theme of it. And this is a psalm of King David. And in verse 1, it says, in the Lord I put my trust. How can you say to my soul, flee as a bird to the mountain? And so this one is going to be about trust, trusting in the Lord. Maybe he was just like, I'm just ticked off and I don't know what to do, but I'm going to trust God. So many of the Psalms, or all of the Psalms, should I say, have a theme to them. Some are about waiting. Some of them are about trusting. Some of them about, I'm about to trip out, but I'm gonna try to hold on, okay? And it's just really about all of the Psalms, 150 of them are just about human life situations. All right, so who wrote the Psalms? Who's our biggest author? Who do you think our biggest? Oh, David, very good. Now, if you have your Bibles open or if it's on your computer, I want you to just look at the Psalm. So I'm gonna show you, let me see if you can see mine. And then right up under it, it should tell you who wrote it. I don't know if you guys can see my screen. Okay. And then so say like right here, I have Psalm 26, a Psalm of David. And then it should be under that, whether you have a paper Bible or you're looking at it on your phone or the computer, it should tell you who wrote it.
And if it doesn't say who wrote it, then what are you just assume that it just a song?
Oh, okay. That's a very good question. Now, there are about 75 Psalms that are attributed to King David. There are about 12 or 13 or so that are attributed to a priest named Asaph. Okay. And Asaph was a musician. Let me see if I can find one.
How about Songs 100?
100, let's see, I have. Yeah, I don't have one on there. Now this one could be David. So you have David could be one, Asaph is one, Solomon could have wrote some, Psalms as well. That's another potential author. But yeah, in my book, I don't have an author for 100. I have an author for 101. Is David.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's really cool. 103. I got 103, a Psalm of David. Yeah. Okay, so So anyway, I want you to see that also that these psalms, remember, were songs and they were actually sung in the temples. Isn't that cool? So they put these to music. They put them to music and they actually sung them. But I want you to see the longest psalm. And I want you guys, if you have your book or if you have your actual paper Bible, excuse me, or if it's online, go to Psalm 119 real quick. This is the longest psalm.
Okay. Yeah.
And it was divided into letters. And you might see these Hebrew letters. And so imagine we have 26 letters in our alphabet, right? A, B, C, D, E, F, all the way down to Z. And imagine we did a poem or a song, and then this was the A group, and this was the B group, and so on and so forth. Then we would have 26 sections to our song. Well, I want you to see how long this goes. And you see that it is divided, and each section has a letter, and that's the Hebrew letter. So Aleph, do you see Aleph?
Yes.
And Beth,
Mm-hmm.
Gimel,
Going.
going. And this is the longest book. I mean, excuse me, not book. This is the longest song. And how many verses does it have?
Verses or chapters?
No, how many? No, how many?
I'm sorry. It said, okay, 176.
There you go. You got it. You got it.
All in one song.
Yeah, just mute it. Okay, very good. Just mute your microphone, Opal. Okay, and then all right. So let me watch the time, and we're gonna head on down to our. No, I want to tell you one more thing before we go about Psalms, and some of the Psalms were prophetic, and I just wanted to show you this, and this is in Psalm 22. Some of the words that are located in Psalm 22, as you see right here on your screen, were fulfilled in the New Testament, and it's really interesting. It's just really interesting. So I just want you to see a couple of things here, and I know we're moving really fast. In Psalm 22, verse 1, it says, my God, why have you forsaken me? Why are you so far from saving me? So far from the words of my groaning. I'm gonna scoot down to 22 and verse 16. Dogs have surrounded me, a band of evil men has encircled me, and they have pierced my hands and my feet. 22 and 18 says they divide my garments among them and cast lots for my clothing. Okay, so I'm saying all this to say, sometimes in the Psalms, there were words that were written that were prophetic. You know what prophetic means? That's it. Okay.
Futuristic.
Futuristic, very good. So it spoke of the future, and the future situation happened to Jesus in the New Testament. And Jesus actually said some of these words on the cross. He said this right here, verse 22 and 1. This happened to him, verse 22 and 18. This happened to him, verse 22 and 16. Happened to him, and 22 and 7. All of that happened in the New Testament. So I thought that was really, really interesting. All right, everybody, I apologize. We're going to move fast so we can finish up here. And the book of Ecclesiastes is wisdom literature. I love Ecclesiastes, and this is another book that is attributed to King Solomon. And King Solomon was, we keep talking about King David, and he was his son. He was David's son. And so what I want you to see in, if you have your Bible book with you, or if you're on the computer, just scroll down or click over to the book of Ecclesiastes. It's a long word, so just type it in there. But the whole theme of this book is like little lessons. And people will just read this, even if they're not Christian. You know, a lot of the lessons are just like life lesson stuff. So, and we're actually going to take a look at something in just a second in Ecclesiastes 3. And Ecclesiastes lets us know what the meaning of life really is. It's not like in finding a whole bunch of money, although money is good. And it's not having a big office downtown somewhere and driving a big car, although those things are really nice. But the author of the book tells us that, you know, true satisfaction in life is not money, but it's just doing what is right and finding that meaning in your higher power in God. And let's just look at this real quick. And I want us to go to Ecclesiastes chapter 3. And this is a very, very popular passage of scripture. Sometimes you will hear it read maybe like at a funeral or anytime, really anytime. And like I said, even if you're not a Christian, this stuff, this wisdom applies to everybody. Okay. Is anybody there at Ecclesiastes? And scroll down to chapter 3. And I want somebody to read down to verse 8, if you could, please.
Okay, I'll read.
Okay, thank you.
There is a time for everything and a season for every activity under the heavens, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to uproot, a time to kill and a time to heal, a time to tear down and a time to build, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to moan and a time to dance, a time to scatter stones and a time to gather them, a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing, a time to search and a time to give up, a time to keep and a time to throw away, a time to tear and a time to mend, a time to be silent and a time to speak, a time to love and a time to hate, a time for war and a time for peace.
Okay, cool. Thank you so much. And do you see the poetry there? Do you see the contrast of each line? And, you know, it's time to be born. Somebody's gonna be born, and as sure as we're born, it's time to die, right? It's a time to plant something, and then hopefully, if that plant did up and have us a crop. And so, just look at the repetition, the flow of the poetry, the oh, hey, there's a lot that we can apply to our own selves that we see in our own lives. You know, sometimes there is a time for war. We don't want a war, but maybe there might be a time for a war. And then there's a time for peace. We've seen that in our own country, Lord. There's a time to speak up, isn't it? And then there's a time to be quiet. Okay, but verse 3.
I said, yes, ma'am.
A time to kill. Y'all heard a movie like that?
Yes.
Well, yeah. But anyway, you'll find a lot of wisdom literature finds its way into other books, into your movies, uh,
Hmm.
into music, you'll find that as well. So let's just stop right here. So Ecclesiastes is just little proverbs, just little things for us to learn. And it doesn't always have to be, something big, but it could be little um, lessons. Or I have one underlined in my book. Um, do not be rash with your mouth, and let your heart utter anything hastily before God. Okay, so that's just like a little lesson. Don't be rash with your mouth. Some people are just so quick to say, yeah, I'm gonna go and do this, I'm gonna do that. And just slow down and be careful, because we say we're gonna do something, then people are like, well, I thought you said you were gonna start a business. I might, but so the book of Ecclesiastes is just a great book of life lessons and just some wisdom for us all. All right. Okay, everybody, so I'm coming back to you. Any questions so far? All right. Well, let me recap again. Remember that your final I'm going to type this in here. Life application paper is due on the 4th. And you're going to find that. Let me go back to our class. Let me see if I can get back in there. Just in case if you joined us after I talked about it. Uh-oh. All right, so you're going to find this in week 13, and this is what you should be working on now until next week, your final paper. And so you're going to select one of these Old Testament scriptures, blah, 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 all the way down here. And these are the 3 research areas that you should include in the paper in at least 3 double-spaced pages. Remember, if you get anything from anybody else that is not your original thought, you need to make sure that you cite that source. And okay, so as we're ending, if you guys go back over that PowerPoint, I had some more videos in there for you as well. I think we played the Song of Solomon video. You can finish that one later. And I think I had another one about Job that explains a little bit more about that play setup. Any questions for me?
I want to ask a question about my registration. I have contacted them at least 3 times,
Okay.
and they have yet to, I guess, confirm what classes I need to take so I can get registered. But I called yesterday and left a message. But anyway, it's Thanksgiving. When is the last day for registration is my question.
Give me 1 second. So I'm gonna stop this and let me start recording. Hold on 1 second.